everybody. Welcome to another edition of Exploring Alternate Realities with Jorianne the Coffee Psychic. We have a wonderful show today. A gentleman that's gone through an awful lot in exploring the other side and the death of his son. I've got something to read here first. On the morning of January 3rd, 2016, my world was turned upside down. I received a call from a lake house in Wisconsin that my son and 3 of his friends were missing. After a celebration marking the end of Christmas break from college, the boys had jumped in a canoe and paddled out on the icy lake. They never came back. My son Christopher's body was discovered first, and the others over the next few dark days. My heart was broken, and my soul was crushed. How could a vibrant 21-year-old not be coming home? How could a loving God do this? And how could he do it to me? I finally figured out that God didn't do this. Chris's recklessness and free will caused him to meet his fate. God doesn't move us around like chess pieces, but I needed to do something. I was aware of mediums on the other side. I needed to figure out if it was fact or fiction. I was not about to buy into it just to placate my grief. If it was real, I wanted to know more. I wanted in. If it wasn't real, I wanted to know that too, and scratch it off the list. The book we wrote, My Search for Christopher on the Other Side, is a journey of the first 2 years since he crossed over. It's a journey of grief and awakenings, discovery and acceptance, and of course, love. I found out through mediums and research and eventually direct communication that there is another side. A better one for those in attendance and a place we're all going to. I started out by connecting with Christopher through a medium on the phone. The messages were astounding and reassuring, but I needed more. I wanted to look into the face of the one talking to and hearing from my son. That took me on a whole new path of discovery. I met with mediums in small and large groups and one-on-one. I attended lectures and spirit circles. Through meditation, I was able to receive messages from Chris on the other side through channeled writing. Let's be clear about something. I'm far from a flaky guy. I'm at the heart of a blue-collar kid from Buffalo, New York, who did pretty well in business. I'm a solid guy, a family guy, a guy's guy who at 62 still plays hockey with my pals. I sport a crew cut and am still more comfortable in a locker room than at a dinner party. And if you think that I'm hallucinating, well, I'm 33 years sober, so scratch that off the list of explanations. The continued search for Christopher has brought me into the world that is securely set in the afterlife. But it's not afterlife. It's after this life. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
What a really tough situation to go through.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
That you get that call.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure my parents dreaded that call when I was kind of a wild kid myself, every time the phone rang after midnight.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know until you get it what it's really like. You know, there's a line from a wonderful movie called Manchester by the Sea,
Mm-hmm.
where the woman lost some children in a fire, and she explained that her heart was broken, it'll always be broken.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. You know, time heal all wounds is not for people who lost kids.
Yeah.
You acquire tools so that you can function,
Mm-hmm.
but your heart's never the same. Never will be until I cross over and spend it again.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. Now, there's a lot of things I want to ask you about,
Sure.
and then things that you can share with our viewing audience, because as you know, many people out there have lost children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, when I speak, generally 30% of the audience, I ask them to raise their hands. And my favorite part of those is when there's Q&A.
Yeah.
And ask them to raise their hands. And generally, somewhere around 30% of the audience have lost children.
Yeah.
And they're looking for some answers, and they're looking for some reassurances, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So So you're an author.
I am now.
Yeah. And I think you had said something like you never expected to be an author.
No, it wasn't in my wheelhouse at the time. It wasn't what I expected to do.
Yeah, yeah. So, so I want to mention to you earlier today, I was actually going over some of your information again, and I got completely overwhelmed with the presence of your son.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know I'm also medium.
Yes, I
and
do.
you're a medium now too.
Well, in some ways. I don't see your parents or your grandparents. I communicate with my son, and that's what I want. You know,
Okay.
I'm not looking to expand who I am and what I want to be service to people who've lost kids or lost some loved ones close.
Yes, yes. Okay. So when, you know, the first part that I read over there, when you actually started looking for the psychic mediums, what was that like for you?
Well, you know, it really goes back to my sophomore year in college.
Okay.
Literally, I was having a picnic with this pretty gal who's now literally a psychic in Wisconsin, and she was explaining to me that her mom, and I went to school in upstate New York, and her mom was a psychic at Lilydale. I didn't know what Lilydale was, but I found it. In fact, I spent a couple days in Lilydale this summer.
Okay.
So I found this very interesting, and it was back at the time. This was kind of unusual, and she was a little embarrassed by it, even though now she's evolved into a medium herself. And so I found it very intriguing, and I think she understood that I wasn't looking to make fun of it. So she explained more of it, and I thought it was very interesting. And I paid very little attention. And then in about 2000, I went and saw Nancy Myers. And she's wonderful. She was in the West Suburbs. Somebody recommended or referred her to me.
Okay.
And I went and saw her, and most of it was mundane because I didn't have a real intense reason to be there, right? My parents had left, but there wasn't this longing or calling. But I went and saw her, and at the end of the reading, she said, "Your dad's here." And I adored my dad. I wrote a chapter about him in the book called Iron Joe. And he said, "Your dad's here," she said, "and he's showing me a caboose and telling you railroad, that you know what that means." My dad spent 40 years on the railroad.
Wow.
We had 10 kids in our family, 5 boys. All of us worked on the railroad during college.
Wow.
And some after. And so the culture of our family was railroad. That's who we were. I have a railroad lantern on my bookcase at home to remind me of the cold steel that's in it, that runs through us. And so that's who it was. And so it was like, wow, that's amazing. And so when I took that, I just put it in the file cabinet of my mind.
Yeah.
Then 16 years later, when I needed it, I drew on that and figured, if Iron Joe's somewhere that he can communicate with me and explain that he's there, then my kid's there. And my dad was nothing but a family man. So I knew if my son Christopher had crossed over, he was going to be with my dad.
Yeah.
And that started the search for some answers.
Wow. So little did you know early on when you're seeing this woman, this nice lady, and she's sharing her family, you know, love of the spirit world, that you at one point were going to walk right into it.
No, and it's funny if you connect all the dots. You know, I think a coincidence is God showing off, you know. So I think if you connect all the dots, these you know, Spirit laid these out, so when these trail of breadcrumbs, when I needed it in these dark times after my son had drowned, that I had some recall of where to go, you know, some path that I could follow, and I did.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, see, yeah. Well, so I'm going to go to some of these really interesting questions here. So it says when you're meeting with mediums since Chris's death, you keep very good notes. Okay. Did you really think that you were ever going to write a book?
No. You know what I thought? And here's a good term. I keep copious notes. Pretty good for a blue-collar kid from Buffalo. I would keep these notes, and I assumed that at some point in time, sitting on a rocking chair somewhere, smoking a cigar, I would review these just to kind of ease the pain. Yeah. Right? And that's what I thought I was supposed to do with those. And so I had kept them for a year after he had drowned. And in the spring of 2017, so a year after he crossed over, in a few months, my brother-in-law Rick was over talking, and Sally and he were talking. My wife Sally were talking, and I was sitting on the stairs just listening to the conversation. So they were talking about when Chris was little and he'd play hide and seek, and he'd hide behind the couch and he'd yell hide again, and you'd find him, and then he'd go hid in the closet and you'd find him and he'd go hide again, and he would do this. He'd run you down, he'd wear you down, and he was tenacious that way. And it occurred to me that I have a responsibility to find him,
Nice.
now, And the next day I got up and started writing the book. I had all these notes that I'd accumulated at that point for just over a year. And so I started writing the book. And during the book, I would loads from Chris.
I'm going to stop you there. I want to stop you there. How?
Okay, I'll tell you. But
How
he would
did
tell
that-
me,
Yeah.
Dad, you got to finish this. You got to keep going. This is important. You got to help other parents who've lost kids.
Yes.
So his bedroom growing up is my office at home.
Nice.
Right? I have a home office. I go into the city every day, but I have a home office where I start the day and end the day. And his energy moves very freely through there. It's very comfortable. And so I started getting woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would go in the office and I'd light sage and a candle, and I would just meditate and try to feel my son around me.
Yeah.
And it felt good. And then I would blow out the candle and go back to bed. And,
Nice.
Or start the day at 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever.
Yeah.
And then a year, the anniversary of his drowning, January 3rd, 2017. I thought, and I would listen to, I would align my chakras. And it's crazy sounding from a guy like me, but I have crystals and chakras, and I'm following some of the rules. I never followed any rules in my life, but I'm following some of the rules to make me feel closer to him.
Yeah.
On the anniversary, I get a message that and it's literally his voice in my head that said, Pop, you're not going to believe this. The colors are vibrant, they're blues, they're greens, they're beautiful.
Wow.
They're soft. It's like walking on a beach. And so I'm not sure what to do with this. So I start writing this stuff down, and I grew up playing ball. So when you're on a hitting streak, you don't change.
Right.
So I had this Bic Velocity pen that I got from Andrew Anderson at a psychic reading. It's just a regular pen, and a Staples. When I'm writing or when I'm involved in this, it's with the Bic Velocity pen and a Staples. I won't write anything else but a Staples legal pen. I'll go into Staples and find that exact legal pen by 10.
Nice.
And he started giving me messages. Now I was confused, shocked, gratified for the messages. And what I finally did and he would say, got to go, Pop, which meant we're done, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or pulling back, Dad, love you. But he always lets me know when the conversation's over. And it's not a two-way conversation. Like when I'm with a medium, I'll ask questions. This is dictation. He's telling me things.
Yeah.
And I'm writing them down. And then I turn the desk light back on because we're in darkness. I turn the desk light back on, and I take a fine point pen, and I start writing, clarifying so that I can read this later on.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. I'd staple it, date it, put it in a file, and then move on. And pretty soon I got a year.
Wow.
And kind of coincidentally, one of the messages he gave me the first reading. And I brought these to mediums like Thomas John and Andrew Anderson, Sherry, Jewel. They all looked and said, "No, that's him. That's not you. It's not you're losing your."
People ask when they start
it's not
going
an acid flashback, Jory. It's
Yep.
And you know what? I guess you got to experience it to know it. But we all have this ability, if we dial it in. So one of the first things he said to me was, he said, "Dad, you gotta love me." Scotty was the kid whose family owned the lake house. I was mad at them. It wasn't their fault.
No.
These are 21-year-old kids. I was reckless and crazy. So, but I needed to be mad at somebody, right?
Yeah.
So I was mad that, that there was unsecured boating. Come on.
Yeah.
So, and he got, and I thought, sure, Chris, for you, anything.
Yeah.
Besides, when will I ever see you again? Flash forward 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Impromptu at his grave, I get a text from his college buddies that said, Mr. McQuillen, because Sally and I were going to meet at the grave later on and have a little ceremony, release. And he said, we got some kids at the grave, could you come by? So I swung by, brought my hockey cooler with some beer and Gatorade for the boys and some cigars. And all of a sudden, cars started coming. We had 60 people at the grave.
Wow.
Impromptu. They were connecting with each other.
Wow.
And it was the anniversary of crossing, and it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
We had 60 people show up,
Mm-hmm.
and one of those was Scotty. And I embraced him, and he was crying, and I was crying.
Mm-hmm.
But flashback 12 hours, he was preparing me for this.
Yeah.
So that I didn't walk into this resentment. I walked into this with an open, loving heart for somebody who lost a friend.
Yeah.
And of course felt some responsibility, even though he shouldn't,
Right.
because it was his house. But God bless. So at that point I knew, oh my gosh, this is my kid.
Totally.
This is my kid, and this continues on to this day. I brought you notes from 9/15 reading when he came to visit.
That's recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
2 or 3 times a month.
Yeah.
I get a call. I
can see, did you want to share some of this with us too? I can see if we have the picture here of the automatic writing. Now, I'd call it automatic writing, spirit writing, whatever people call
Right.
it. Yeah.
It
There
all
we
has
go.
different names.
Yeah. It's all the same thing.
Right.
So, do you want to share with
Sure.
us? So this is from your son Christopher.
So this was at 3:22 in the morning. Now I got to tell you, I thought the reason this was happening at 3 a.m. was because he drowned sometime between 3 and 4.
Okay.
I subsequently found out that you guys, the insiders, call it the bewitching hour.
Okay.
When spirits are most active.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't know. There's rules out there that I'm not privy to, or I'm learning step by step.
And I heard because the energies on this part of the earth are quieter, so they can actually be heard more clearly.
Well,
Yeah.
now I know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So go down and look at the moon when we're done. Hi, Pop. Been a while. Too long. Don't forget to get here. It's just one visit. You and me actually came through. Maybe not halfway, but you do more what you feel. I was with you in the woods in Lilydale. The energy there was perfect. Think of it as a worn path. It's easy to travel. Get it? So when you come out to visit, you get back what you put in. And so that's an example of what he was talking to me was about. I had been in Lilydale and got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and went to woods, and it's the oldest spiritual community in the country.
Yeah.
And I went to this place called Inspiration Stump, where they did for 100 years. Mediums would meet, and they have benches all over. And I went there at 3 o'clock in the morning. Walking through the woods to get there was this incredible energy that I felt.
Yeah.
I didn't get any downloads from him or message from him, but the energy was electric and it was alive, and I knew something was going on. And he explains to me, it's because it's a worn path. There's been so many spirits visiting and coming through that it's just, or what the Irish call a thin place.
Okay.
Where the
Yeah.
worlds, where the wall between the two worlds are the thinnest. You know?
Yeah. Totally.
When he was describing the other side to me, he said, it's like a beach, beautiful pink, warm, but the colors are soft and vibrant. Pink, blue, strong green. The air is warm surrounding us. It's air and love. It's love air everywhere. Nothing hurts, warm and happy, always young. Miss you, Dad, but I'll see you soon enough.
Yes, and when you said always young,
Yeah.
when I do work with the other side with spirits, people normally show themselves when they felt the best when they were younger.
He told me it's when he's in his prime.
Yes, that's it. That's when people normally show up. They'll sometimes show up older, but most often it's younger.
My sister, who was Christopher's godmother, and she was one of my favorite people on me, even when I didn't deserve to be loved. And she had the same love and acceptance of my boy. And like me, he was a little wild. I've been in recovery 33 years from alcohol because I was wild. It's that stuff when they're doing it real well anymore,
Yeah.
So she adored him. So I went and saw Anderson. medium. Just the other day, I was out with a client and left and wasn't that far, so I just took a shot, went over visiting. So I hung out with them for a while, and he asked me for pictures of my sister and Chris, and he looked at it and he said, and I said one when Christopher was visiting her when she was in Minnesota getting cancer treatment, and another when she was a kid and he was a baby, and Andrew said, she looks a lot more like this, but even younger, from a picture from 20 years before.
Nice.
He said, so that's her prime. And
Yeah.
even Chris had told me that Aunt Marcia, said to me, when my sister crossed, he said, we were all there, and he promised me he'd be there for her. He said, we were all there, Jerry, Billy, Bobby, Pat. He said, but then she had to go away for a while because the trauma of the cancer, even though she'd left her body beside, was still with her. So think of it as a spa, he said to me.
Yeah.
And when she came back, she was even younger than when I remember her as a kid.
Beautiful.
I never thought that. That's how I
Yeah.
know that's not me.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, Joey, I'm not that smart. I'm not that intuitive that I would think about somebody going through a spa or a car wash after you cross over. But doesn't it make sense that if you cross with this trauma of
Yes.
cancer,
Yeah.
that you've got to shed that before you rejoin the group? And that's what she did.
Not just cancer. It's
Right.
so many other things that people die with the consciousness of what they're living with. And then when they get to the other side, they're like, oh my God, And it's the ego state,
Yeah.
what we die with. And so people do go through this either life review or like a cleansing process, stuff like that. And they spiritual selves.
And I love that he used the gentle term like a spa, which is
Yes,
positive, right?
It is.
Not some life review that's tough or some like a spa. Came out, younger and more vibrant. And Andrew said they're together often, and that he's an older soul than she is, even though she's substantially older than he was. That he's
I
an
can
older
believe that.
soul.
Yeah.
And so he shows her around.
So here's an interesting question for you, Joe. So you channel your son.
Yes,
You get this writing.
Yes.
You write down what he tells you.
yes.
Does your sister ever come through?
My sister comes through with him. And
Yes.
he'll say, now I expect her to, yes, come through
Yeah.
one-to-one. She's come through with mediums, a number of them. I'll tell you a great story about right after she crossed over. But he'll say Aunt Marcia's here.
Good.
So I know they're together. And there's a wonderful medium, Tony Russo,
Okay.
in New York. And Jen referred me or introduced me to her. And she's great. I had this amazing reading. And I talked to her on the phone a year ago, March. I said, I'd love to talk. And she said, okay, well, I can, no, it must have been January.
Okay.
Because it was a year ago, January. She said, I'd love to talk to you, and I should be able to fit you in the next 60 days. I said, no, that's just not going to do.
Yeah.
But why don't you look for an opening and we'll talk?
Yeah.
She called me back like 10 minutes later and said, okay, your son came through to me.
Oh, nice.
And he knows that you want this reading badly and that your birthday's in January and he wants to give this to you in the month of your birthday. So let's do this in 3 or 4 days. And we had this great reading where she, just some amazing things. January when my sister was crossing over, had crossed over, and I went to Florida, and she sends me a text and says, your sister is with Chris, she's crossed over, and she's here, and she's telling you a couple of names. She said to tell you Virginia, Aldo's, and said that Christopher's telling her that he loves the picture of him in the black shirt next to his Aunt Marcia. It could have knocked me over the feather. She raised her family in Virginia before returning to Florida with her husband.
Wow.
The restaurant that we had the reception after her celebration, which was a wake, was her favorite restaurant, but we didn't post it because we had so many family members. We didn't want non-family members coming. The next day was for everybody.
Yeah.
And the restaurant was, and I had gone in to make sure we could get in, was Aldo's.
Nice, nice.
And when we got to, and her two kids were putting all this stuff together at last minute, you know, because she crossed over it. And they're wonderful kids, I adore them, my niece and nephew. And so my wife and daughter they said, can you do a collage? You know, we don't have, can you make this happen? You're artistic. So they did, and his Aunt Marcia was at a family reunion, and Christopher was in a black Tommy Bahamas shirt that he took from me.
There you go.
And had his arm around his Aunt Marcia. And so he said he likes the picture of him with his Aunt Marcia in the black shirt.
Wow.
Which coincidentally was in this collage that I hadn't seen yet.
Wow.
So those are the reinforcements you get.
Wow, that's fascinating.
As long as you're open.
So, I want to ask you, so you channel, your son gives you all this information. Is this something where you've thought about working with other people and having their dead relatives come to you?
No.
Or
I'm
absolutely
selfish,
that?
I'm open. You know, I got to tell you, I had no idea I'd be on shows like yours talking to people or addressing families, parents who've lost kids, kids who've lost siblings. You know, none of that was in my game plan. You know, the Greeks used to say that man plans and God's laugh. You know, that there's a role, and I've got to give it away to keep it. Kind of like sobriety. You know, when you sponsor people and help people. Like, you know, 33 years, I still go to, you know, 34 coming up in a few days. I still go to AA meetings. You know,
keep it alive.
And you sponsor, and you gotta give it away to keep it. That's how I feel about this. I get this gift where I get to communicate with my son, not only with mediums like you, who actually get to see him. I wish I could see him. Someday I hope I'm granted that gift where I can see him, but I do hear him, I do smell him, and I can feel him.
Well, I hear that you will see him.
All right, I love that. Write that down and date it and sign it for me. But so I want to be of service any way I can that God, Christopher, the other side wants me to.
Yes.
Spirit wants me to. The universe wants me to. I'll do that, you know, any way that I can. If that involves channeling, I'd be happy to do it. You know, so far, selfishly, it's just me and him. You know? And a bunch of family members have come through. Thomas John, we were at a Heritage Center here in Highland Park. And Sally and I, on a last-minute whim, saw that he was coming and went to the reading, and he was on fire. He was just going straight on for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And he keeps looking over, and he keeps saying, there's one family, and members keep showing up, you know. And he looked, and he finally said, he was on the other side of the room. He said, they kind of scare me. And he was laughing.
Oh, no.
And they said, okay, who's got an older brother, Jerry, but his name is a different variety of Jerry who left a couple years ago? I raised my hand. I said, my brother Jeremiah, you know, had died a few years ago.
Beautiful. Yep, different
He goes,
name.
okay, so who's Carrie, Pat, Billy, his life? And then the central is your son, Chris. And they named every member of my family.
Wow.
It was amazing. And,
wow.
And continued to talk about things. And I mean, that's the electric connection that I'm given, you know, through people with your gift, and then the channeling head to head. I'm not going to risk losing this by hoarding it, right? By keeping it to myself.
Yeah, of course.
You know, there's moms and dads, specifically dads, who think they just got to suck it up.
Yeah.
And that what was their love in their child, you know, a piece of them is now a void, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
You know? There's, as Susan Geisman says, right? I was on a show the other night. They're still right here.
Yeah.
You know, it's nowhere near Jory. It's nowhere near the hug or the kiss or the ball game or the pizza or whatever, that kind of, but it's as good as
yeah, for sure.
So I'm grateful every day for this connection.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I think we forget where we came from.
Yeah.
And that this human life is just a blink in time.
That we're all going back.
Yeah.
And I laugh about that all the time. I said, you know what? Somebody's going to Panama City, Florida, or Scottsdale, Arizona for spring break. They're online making reservations, checking everything out. Where do we stay? Where do we go? How do we play golf? Where do we go to a ball game? Whatever, right? I laugh about that. But when it comes to the other side, you know, we walk around like we're not all going. Well, I got a surprise for y'all. We're all going, you know, buckle up.
I want to read something.
Sure.
And I love this is something that you wrote. We call this New Age, yet in the 13th century, the philosopher Rumi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly,
You are.
wrote, "Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes, because those who love with their heart and their soul, there is no such thing as separation."
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
There's no such thing as separation.
Isn't that the truth?
You know, people say to me all the time, you know, gee, my sister, you know, I've never heard from her. And my response is, try harder. What have you done to
Yeah.
facilitate, right? Everybody in this who's watching has had some experience where the cell reception is bad.
Right.
So you climb up on a mountain, you
Right
go out on a
on.
deck, you do something to get, but when it comes to our connection with people on the other side, we're supposed to, you know, sit on a rock and wait for it to happen.
But that's such a great analogy.
Right,
Because
right.
sometimes it's like, oh my God, you're so clear, like they're sitting right next to you.
Right.
And other times it's like, okay, can you talk a little louder?
Yeah, it's the cell reception.
That's perfect.
You know,
Yeah.
so when people need to connect, what are you doing? I mean,
Yeah.
dude, I'm getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, lighting sage, lighting candles, you know, realign my chakras, meditating, listening to guided meditation, and it works.
Yeah.
So try it.
Yeah,
You
you're
know?
the tower.
Yeah, you're the tower.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But
That's
you
beautiful.
you can't block that. You can't be, you know, and he'll tell me, sometimes he'll reprimand me, that, Dad, you're worried about things that aren't that important.
Right.
Let go of it. It'll all be okay. Well,
And that's a good channeled message too, because that's what I hear a lot from other people,
Yeah.
from the other spirits.
yeah.
Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah. And there's no luggage racks on hearses, kid. We can't take it with us.
Isn't that a bad? You know, so one of the questions here, what did your family think when you started doing this?
You mean like family, like wife and kids, or extended family?
Everybody.
Okay, you gotta understand.
Here's this guy,
Yeah.
right? This man's man.
Kind of a boots on the ground fella.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a blessing that my pals, you know, I got buddies that played in the NFL, other guys run big funds, other guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Great guys, you know, guys that play hockey with. And most of them had a little bit of a spiritual ilk, a bend, which is why I was friends with them in the first place.
Okay.
And others who said, you know, I would have never believed this if it came from anybody but you.
Wow.
You know, and that's why Chris kept telling me when you read the book that you're a good ambassador, Pop, because they'll believe you if you say it, right? I'm not too flaky, you know what I mean? I'm not too flighty. This is nuts and bolts stuff, and I deliver the message in a clear, concise, you know, message in a way
Yeah.
that we can all get it, because, you know, I was brand new at this. I walked in cold. So I'm the youngest of 10 kids. We were from an Irish Catholic family,
Wow.
blue collar, maybe on the hooligan side, you know. And so all we ever, you know, the neighbors didn't talk to us. Nobody liked us. And so we all joined together. So I never cared outside of my family what anybody thought.
Yeah.
And it was a blessing, because it gave me confidence to know my family loves me. And so I don't have to dress the way you want me to dress or act the way you want me to dress. I never cared about that. So that's been really beneficial, because if anybody thinks this is out there, that's okay. Change the channel. Do what
Yeah.
you got to do, man.
Totally.
Now, in my family, you know, my wife and my daughter Caroline, who just graduated from Marquette, and William and Sal, my wife, you know, they all had their own grieving processes, but they've all had exposure to this.
Yeah.
And nobody's worried that Dad's a whack job. You know, I think they all take some pride in this, and the exposure to help others makes them proud, I believe. I know.
Well, you know, when you think about the work that you're doing here, I don't even have to say, I can hardly imagine. I know what it is.
Yeah.
And the security that you bring to other people, letting them know that their family members are okay
Yeah.
through Chris, it's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, and it's a gift, and I'm delightful to be the ambassador, to deliver that message,
Yeah.
because it really, I get, you know, texts and calls, and I welcome them, you know, from people who've lost, and here's a constant one. It was like, I just met, you know, a therapist, a counselor out in Tucson, and my son was at a boarding school there.
Excuse
And
me.
Happy birthday, Tiffany. She just turned 40 today.
Oh, nice.
She's got three lovely kids, and she said, "Look, there's a woman I'm just having lunch with who lost a daughter or a son 5 years ago, who actually had gone to the same boarding school in Balance Ranch, and 5 years ago to homicide. Can she call you? I said, please,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
So I'm in Mariano's going in to get some groceries, and I get a call. I see the area code from Tucson. I put the car in park, had a cigar going, so just opened the window, and for 45 minutes, I talked to this woman about the fact that her boy isn't gone, and that whatever happened in those moments where his life was snatched from him, he was shot. That's not his reality now. That recall is similar to you and I. 5 years ago, you have your wisdom teeth pulled out.
Yeah.
It was horrible then.
Yeah.
And now you remember it as, oh yeah, it was kind of uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Right? There's no recall of the pain.
Yeah.
And I said, so that's what your son is. He's experiencing a magnificent existence.
Yeah.
He's not living in this painful thing 5 years ago that you are.
Exactly right.
You're suffering that gunshot wound every day, not him. So as long as you can get your arms around, he's on a beach bungalow in Maui.
Yeah.
He's not reliving that traumatic event.
Yeah.
And I think I brought her a bunch of peace, and for that I was grateful.
And she was probably able to let that go when you shared that with her too.
You know what she did when she was talking on the phone? She said, hold on a minute. And the UPS just came and dropped off my book.
Oh my God. You know what? Can we show the book?
Oh, sure.
Can we show the book? Let's see. We have that. So that book. Yep. And the name of it again?
My Search for Christopher on the Other Side.
Beautiful. There we go. Yeah, perfect. And look at what a handsome, handsome young man that is.
That picture was taken. We were up in St. Paul, Minnesota at a St. Paul Saints minor league baseball game.
Okay.
There's a line from A River Runs Through It that talks about, you know that moment is special.
Yeah.
But that it won't last forever.
Yeah.
But I have these recalls of those moments that I just keep close to my heart. That's one of them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's
Thank you.
beautiful. So what would be, I guess I want to know what it was like for you, Joe, when your son first started channeling through you. I can't imagine it was just like, well, I'm just going to have a cup of coffee and a donut here or something. What was that experience like for you? And you're going like, oh my God, this is really Christopher, and he's giving me messages.
Right. Well, first I had to make sure that it just wasn't me.
Okay.
Right? I had never been
totally.
exposed to this,
People think
right?
they're making it up. You bet.
I thought I was making it. I didn't know. I thought, my goodness. And then he would give me messages. This was amazing, Jory, because there were times he was wrong about things. And to me, that was reaffirming. Because I wouldn't, right? Like he said at one point, I know this scares you, Dad, being this close to the other side. And I was like, no, it doesn't. The last thing in the world this does is scare me.
Yeah.
Because they're not omnipresent. They're not God.
Right.
He's explaining to me that they're all part of God, but he's not God. So he was wrong.
Yeah.
He also he described things one time. He talked about relationships.
Yeah.
And he said relationships should flow like a boat going, down a river or on a lake, or a canoe, he said. Now, I would never use an analogy of a canoe. I'll never step foot in a canoe. I don't like, a canoe. My son drowned in a canoe. Right? So him describing that, I know that's not me because I'd never used that term. I don't want to talk about canoes.
Yeah.
But he was able to throw that out there. And then at another point he says to me, we get a kick out of you. And I'm thinking, who the hell's we?
Right?
Who's we?
Yep.
You and one of the, Patrick was one of the boys that crossed with him because I knew Pat.
Yeah.
Is that who's we? Is it you and my brother? Who's we?
Yeah.
He never gave me the answer, but I knew it wasn't me. Otherwise, I would have known who we was, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are all affirmations that were concrete that didn't start with me.
Totally.
I didn't want to let go of that relationship or that resentment with Scotty.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready yet.
Yeah.
But he prepared me and wanted me to, so I did.
Yeah.
So I know that wasn't me.
No, that wasn't you. Because how did you know all those people were going to show up that afternoon?
None.
And
Especially
you were like,
him.
Oh, totally.
Especially him.
Totally.
Yeah.
What a great gift.
Yeah, it is. It's an incredible gift.
Yeah.
Incredible gift. You
Yeah.
know? And and there's a responsibility that comes with it. I'll give you a funny story. And it's not in the book because it happened afterwards.
Okay.
I was in Florida waiting for to help my sister cross. And I got to tell you, my sister was just one of those wonderful, strong women that just, was just the best. And she was always there for me. And she said to me, Joey, she called me Joey, She said, Joey, reading your book at this stage of my life is the greatest gift because now I'm not afraid to die. So it's like I
Wow.
finally could pay her back.
Wow.
For all the love she gave me, I could finally pay her back, and it was wonderful. So that night, some reason we really connect on beaches, specifically in Florida. I don't know if it's other tropics. I haven't been there yet,
Yeah.
since he's crossed. But in Florida, we have this wonderful, amazing relationship that started with me leaving a friend's wedding and driving to a beach and ended up in Siesta Key, which I subsequently found out was the sand isn't sand, it's quartz crystal
Wow.
that washes down from the Appalachian Mountains
Wow. And where is that?
in Sarasota, Florida.
Wow.
Because I was there and I just felt this amazing rush of him.
Yeah.
I started crying, I felt amazing. And then, so I then gone to, the next day I went to Lido Key, and same reaction. Now that one's not a quartz crystal base, but still I get this amazing, and Thomas John said, Thomas John's a world famous medium, said he walked through you that night. That's how close you were.
Wow.
And so flash forward last year, I'm on the beach. I had gone there just to feel Chris after knowing his favorite aunt was getting ready to transition. And I get a message that said, go to Siesta Key. And I was like, dude, I'm in Naples, I'm 2 hours away. It's 10 o'clock at night, I'm flying home the next day. So I said, okay, let me make you a deal, Chris. I'm going to go to the car, look at my phone. If it's open, I'm not going to drive 2 hours and have the beach closed, right? Remember the movie National Lampoon Vacation?
Right.
Sorry, folks, the moose at the front gate should have told you we were closed. So I didn't want to be that guy.
Totally.
And so I get to my phone, Siesta Key open 24 hours. I said, all right,
Wow.
I guess we're going. And so I grabbed a couple cigars, stopped and got a Red Bull, and boom, drove up in a rent-a-car. They don't like that, so don't smoke in rent-a-cars. But
There you go.
But that's public service.
You didn't
message.
say it here.
Public service message. So I drive up there, and I texted a medium friend who had texted me, Sherry Jewell, that I was going up there. So I get there, I'm laying on the beach, I just feel this amazing sense. I've been all over the country, I've been all over the world.
Yeah.
I've seen some amazing, beautiful constellations and stars in Alaska and big skies. And this is the prettiest night I've ever seen. And I'm laying on it, and I got a text from Sherry that said, your son's with you, look up at the stars. And that's exactly what I was doing.
Nice.
And I said, too late, I'm looking up, I know. I'm there and just feeling this wonderful situation, experience of him. And I think, well, I'm exhausted now. And I got to get ready. I got to get home. I got work to do.
Yeah.
And I said, but I should probably drive to Lido Key since I'm this close. I get in the car and I get a message that said, not today, Bob. You're done.
Okay.
So that, he let me off the hook.
There you go.
And I laughed because somebody said to me, well, what do you think that was about? I said, I think it's about him standing next to one of his friends on the other side. I said, see, I told you the old man would show up, And it's just proof that if you want to connect, maybe it takes driving 2 hours each way.
Yeah.
But what would you do to have an hour and a half or with somebody you love who's crossed? Would you put 2 hours in
Sure.
easily, right?
Sure.
Good trade.
Yeah.
Right? Good trade.
I want to tell you two things. My sister, when she died, she kept coming to me in dreams on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one time I had a perfect memory of me being out there going to visit her. And it was like 100% real. But every time I tried recalling when did I go, because at that time I didn't have any finances to do that,
Right.
it wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I never did go, but I knew I went there. So we were together in spirit.
You did a little astral travel there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So that was really fascinating. And the other thing's out of my head now, so we'll just...
We'll get there.
So when you think about God and you think about the universe and you think about the other side, is there anything different from the way you were taught as a younger man to how you know it is for sure now? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
because a lot of us have been trained in a certain... I was raised as a strong Catholic like you,
Yeah.
Irish, and my world of what I was trained with and what I know God to be before is way different than I know God today.
I found a loving God in recovery
Yeah.
because, all of a sudden the compulsion to drink was lifted
Amen.
from a source outside of me,
Yes.
right? I didn't have the strength or the character to do it. Why I was allowed to do it, and many others I know who haven't survived this disease weren't able to.
Yeah.
So I think it's a God-given gift. So I had this relationship. I believed in this God. I was raised Catholic. I was 13 years of Catholic school. The last year didn't work out so well in Catholic college, but sorry, Gannon.
Different story.
Yeah, that's the story for another time. And so, with the harps but I think some of that stuff isn't all that off, because I think heaven is your own reality of a heaven.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law comes through all the time.
Nice.
Well, no, it wasn't my father. You know what I mean? He goes, well, we're with mediums. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? It's my dime, And,
There you go.
And he comes, and he wasn't a great dad. My dad was a phenomenal dad. This guy wasn't a great dad.
Yeah.
And he didn't quite understand my wife, who was very loving and sweet. But he comes through all the time. And we're told that his reality, his heaven, or whatever you want to call it, whatever term, utopia, whatever, call it what you want, is upland game hunting. Like
Nice.
shooting birds and the dog and the khakis and loved it. That's the real. Chris's, I think, is going to be the same as mine, which is beaches and tropics and tropical and Jimmy Buffett music and sand in your feet and warm breezes. So I think whatever your joy is how we are allowed to understand what our final reward will be.
Yeah.
And mine's going to be with him.
Yeah,
I've had an experience with a meeting in flames, and it's also not in the book because it happened after Christopher crossed over, that he and I were twin flames, not just soul families.
Right. And I just want to let people know that twin flames are not about male and female
God,
lovers. No. It's one soul that comes in that breaks off, and that pure love, it's just, you guys are the same
And
energy.
Soulmates.
Yeah.
Soulmates aren't your romantic mate here.
Yeah.
It's not,
No.
That's what TV tells you.
Yeah.
Right? Soulmates aren't, we're soul families.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same. In our case, there's a lot of us in the same soul family.
Yeah.
But not everybody's mentioned in my family over there. So, I'm not going to tell you who's not. But the same. So all of these preconceived notions that came out of the Love Boat, isn't the reality. The reality is, your soulmate doesn't have to be your yin and yang on this side.
Yeah.
It could be, there's people I've met that I've met at other times, and I knew that before I was even exposed to this.
Yeah.
That there's some kind of connection, like, dude, we got real tight real quick, something's up.
Right. Don't I know you from before?
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And those people, stay with you for, my oldest pal, Al, been friends since freshman year in high school, Bishop time in 1971. And we survived my recovery, his loss of his wife, Debbie, about 12, 13 years now.
Yeah.
Loss of my son. And here's a guy who's completely connected in, and the same kind of guy as I am, connected into what the other side's about. And he's gone his path, and we've kind of merged on this thing.
Nice.
And we share it.
Yeah.
I called him just recently, a few months ago, and said, dude, it's been 3.5 years, and I'm still just, I'm just down today.
Yeah.
He said, and this is what I love about this cat, he goes, get used to it.
Yeah.
He said, that's your reality. It won't last for long, but let it run its course.
Yeah.
He said, it's been 13 years with me and Deb, and I
Yeah.
still have those. So,
Yeah.
they ain't going to go away, sport,
Yeah. So, here's a good question.
They've all been good questions.
I know, right? So when you think about death and dying, I think that many times we get so used to this being the reality that we've actually forgotten who we are and where we've come from. So, and I think the loss is when we just are so in love with all of our family and friends, that's the thing that causes the heartbreak, because like you said, Joe, we can't hug, we can't hold, we can't kiss and stuff. I liken it to being like in a different room. They're in a different room, or they went to France, they went to Paris. It's like, no, they're okay, but they're there.
Yeah.
And so when you think about dying now, how has that changed from your perception about when you were younger? It's like, oh no, death, death, people die. What was it like for you to think about death a long time ago? And now, How was the concept of death looking for you?
I thought death was the end. I didn't know what the end meant, but I thought it was the end.
Yeah.
There's a great movie that kind of explains it a little bit. It's called What Dreams May Come. Robin Williams
Love it.
and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Oh my God.
So
Best
probably
movie ever.
for a basic guy like myself, it's the best explanation. Cuba Gooding Jr. is his spirit guide in this movie.
Yeah.
And he's crossed over, he's died. And he said, look, you know, your body is like, think of it as like your house.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you're in your house, you aren't your house. Your house falls down, you move on.
Yeah.
And that really cleared up what happens. I am in my body right now, but I'm not my body.
Yeah.
When this body falls down, and it's falling daily, you know, when this body falls down, and that's what my son did. And that's what my sister Marcia did.
Yeah.
And I do believe that they moved on in their spirit, because I'm told this, are all together with McQuillens, with a bunch of family members. You know? And it was always a pretty good time for us. And
I want to say upstairs playing cards.
Yeah, it could. Well, we used to have we'd have dinner at my mom and dad's house every Sunday.
Yeah.
It was mandatory. There was always a touch football game. There was watching an NFL game, and then big dinner, and then there was some kind of board game or pinochle or,
Nice.
you know what I mean? There was always this communal interaction. So I know, and you know, I had a medium say to me that your dad's here, and he's with your son, and he just wants you to know. He said, "Tell my son that I got the kid."
Nice. Nice.
You know, so he's with Iron Joe. So what do I got to worry about, right?
I know, right? Right? Yeah. Isn't it exciting, though, to think about? I think there was a question out there, and they said, be with like 3 people ever, like when you die. Who are those people going to be?
Chris.
Yeah.
Now, my dad, and now I'm not going to pick between Jerry and Marcia. They'd be mad at me forever. Those guys, you know what I mean? They're those guys, and that's who I will be forever. You know what I mean? I've been told by him. He said, Chris has said to me in this book that he said, Dad, the learning curve for you is going to be so much easier because of what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
He said, for me, it was a bit of a shock.
Yes.
What this was all meaning. My niece, here's a wonderful thing. My niece, Carrie, who died in 2012 of a brain aneurysm, left 2 little boys that they'd have adopted, 2 little Korean boys, Ryan and Alex. And after the funeral, Chris said to me, Dad, I'm staying. And I said, what do you mean you're staying? He said, look, you know, Bill's got to go to work. They don't have childcare lined up. So until they figure that out, I'm going to stay and watch the kids.
Wow.
I said, you know, dude, you're a 19-year-old kid. That's a heck of a responsibility.
Wow.
And he schooled his old man by saying, that's what family does.
Yes.
So he stayed for 2 months, wiped their noses, changed their diaper, took them to preschool, all that
You know, I
stuff.
got goosebumps throughout my whole body right now, John.
Yeah. So guess who greeted my son when he crossed over? My niece, Carrie.
Wow.
Thomas John said to me, 2012, 2011, he said 12 or 13, he said, your niece, Carrie, greeted Chris, and she left 2 boys, Ryan and Alex. That's nowhere.
Yeah.
Her name was, when she passed away, she crossed over, her name was Van Cott. Her birth name was Ryan because my sister, you know, was married and took on her husband's name. So there's no connection here.
Yeah.
If anybody wanted to find the pigeon, you know, the breadcrumbs, you couldn't. There is none. And so Carrie greeted, and he said to her, Carrie, what are you doing here? Because he was surprised.
Yeah.
But he said to me, Dad, your learning curve is going to be so much easier because of what we've had, what I'm showing
Totally.
you know?
Totally. I agree. And because you're opening up to the spirit world all the time.
And I got to tell you, I'm in nowhere. I got a lot to do. This book is a passion. It's got to get out there. I mean, out there.
Totally.
And talking to some people about a movie. It's a lot of cool things happening.
Nice.
But it's just that I want his message. I want Chris's message out there.
Yes.
You know, so I got a lot of work to do. I got that. I still got 2 kids. They're young adults, but they still need their dad. And I got a wonderful bride. And so I'm not ready to go. But if God tapped me on the shoulder, it's the time to go.
Yeah.
I
Pack your
had this
bags.
life beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And the next run, I get to do it the minute I cross over with my son by
Yeah.
the door.
Yeah.
So I fear nothing, Jory.
Yeah.
I fear nothing.
That's wonderful, Joe. And you can see, like you said, your son is an older soul.
Yeah.
Because for him to say, Dad, I'm going to take care of these kids, what teenage child is going to say that, hey, I
couldn't
want to
take
get out
care
of
of
here and have
myself
fun?
at 19 years old.
Yeah, totally. This hour has gone by so quickly, so I want to ask you.
Yes.
Thank
Can't
you.
believe it.
Thank you for coming and visiting
oh my
with
God.
us today.
Thank you
and-
for helping me share the message.
Oh my God, my pleasure, my great pleasure. What would you, for anything, any last thing, want to share with our viewers about what's the message?
Still right here. You know what? This isn't a little group of people trying to do this to feel better about their heartbreak.
Yeah.
Your family members, specifically, and I'm sorry to keep channeling back or running back to this.
Please.
Your kids aren't gone.
Yeah.
You know, take a look. Look at the definition of energy. Energy can't be destroyed.
Yeah.
It changes form, right?
Yeah.
So their spirit, their energy is still here. And that, you know, like I said, it's nowhere near. It's not like hanging out on the couch watching a ball game together. Right, but you can still have that connection. I feel him. He's around me now. I get a chill on my neck when he's around. I know when he's around me, and I know when he's not.
Yeah.
You know, I had a golf outing for him it was the 4th annual, and we raised a bunch of money for a wonderful cause, and he wasn't around me. Why? Because a bunch of his pals, his college pals, his fraternity pals, were there playing, partying, having a great time, and he was with them.
Yeah.
You know, and he knew that was okay.
Right,
You know?
right.
I guess we're done.
And you can keep telling me too.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, and so that's the answer is that they're still here.